Hello, welcome to the Harrison Show. I'm Brian Harrison, and today we're talking about the housing crisis. And it, and the reason why I'm talking about this is I don't think homelessness should be a thing unless you have to be. And housing is important to people. People need to live. People need to survive. I think what frustrates me is the fact that we've allowed companies to be greedy, and we've allowed, and you can tell it, because these companies say things like even Disney says stuff, but what they try to justify it. But see, the problem is you could scream and holler all you want to justify things, but people don't have the money. People aren't coming to you. Case in point, where I live. Where I live, this company bought them out. The people previously owned it, kept it fair, so they kept people here. I think they were smart. They knew. They were a smaller owner. They did own other properties, but they were a smaller owner considered to the company that bought us out. And as soon as they bought us out, no sooner than it was the ink dried and they were able to, they jacked up the prices. Thinking, oh man, we're gonna get. They lost more than half the residents overnight. Like it was like an exodus out. They still haven't recovered. There's a lot of units opened up. I give them 2 to 5 years to fail. I think they kind of deserve it. I'm sorry. I can't. And we could be nice and talk nice all we want about this, but the problem with it is just like there's a, th- a thing I've heard of, and I've seen it in a few. I know I've seen it in one film about the rise of evil, called The Rise of Evil. It says, for evil people to exist or to do things is for good people to do nothing. And that's the problem. We have too many evil people, and I'm sorry to say we do, and a lot of it is in greedy corporations that do things and get away with it, and then try to play the victim, try to act like, oh, poor me, I'm just like you, I'm starving, and they're not starving, they make billions, and people are finally seeing through the facade, and we need to stop playing the game. They're not just like us. Because if they were just like us, they'd be living in apartments. They'd have crappy cars to drive, and they don't. Most of them have very well. They go to very nice parties. They pay for all kinds of crazy things that me and you could never hope to buy. So I don't play this sympathy thing for them. Um, but people say, well, they have the right to make money. Well, everybody has the right to make money. Okay, that's a secret, right? Come on, people. The whole point would be lifting people out of poverty, and that's the problem with housing. The problem with housing is you have too many people homeless, and then they try to make homelessness illegal, and I laugh. It makes me laugh. Where are you gonna put them? Okay, good. You make it illegal. Okay, how are they gonna get housing now? The other problem is in our area we have Section 8 housing, which is not good housing. I'm sorry to say, it really isn't. It's actually horrible housing. I even have someone, I won't say who they were, someone who told me that that's a last resort and they don't recommend it to anyone because that's how bad it is. Okay? When the government runs things, at least in this situation, not everything, some things they do good at, I don't understand. Other things like housing, when they run it, it's a hellhole. It's basically communism and Nazism wrapped into one. I mean, that's basically what it is. It's not good. Now, there are people who I guess live there and thought they did well, maybe because they're just happy to have a house. But the other problem with Section 8 housing is it's basically like slave housing. That's what I would say it is. I've never lived in one, thank God, but I've known of people, horror stories and people who've lived in them who will tell you don't, if you can, avoid them. And that's not an answer because we could do Section 8 housing to everybody. And the other problem with it, let's say it even worked. The other problem with it is in our area, it's full. and they still have a list as long as my arm and longer. And it can take up to 6 years. It used to take 2 at bare minimum, if they could even help find you a place to live in the meantime. It could take up to 6 years to get into it, if they even have it, and longer if they don't. And you can get all these. It's just that is crazy too. People are supposed to get their free housing supposedly. There's no such thing as free housing. Number one. Number two, it would be nice to have something like that. But number two, it always comes with a cost. Even if it was sort of free, it comes with a cost of you being controlled by certain people who can't control their own lives, but they can control everybody else's lives. That's usually how it works. I'm sorry. I've seen it more times than not, and it needs to stop. What needs to happen is people need to feel like they own something. And I looked into something called condos. Now, I wish this principle was applied more than anything. Basically, you own the inside. It's your responsibility. You basically like owning your own apartment. The ones I were looking into, it's like owning your own apartment. You might as well own it if you're going to pay for it. It's yours. And then they take care of the outside. You pay a small fee. They mow the lawn. And then eventually, if they have to, they replace the roof, which doesn't happen. But because they have all these people paying into the building, it's not, at least the one that I've looked into across the street is actually small. From where I live is actually a small fee. It's like $200, okay, a month, for them to mow the lawn and take care of the property. But you gotta realize you're getting $200 from a lot of people, not just from one person. And it also takes care of the roof when they need to, whenever they need to replace it. So, and it's really nice. I like it. You actually feel like you own something. And they have amenities like a pool there. They have storage. They have a gym, I guess, and that's kind of cool. Okay, it all plays into that. That is actually really cool. I like that type of concept. Okay, and I personally think we should go more into making people feel like they have a place to live or owning. I think we should go into more where people could feel like they own their own house. Okay? That's what my personal opinion is. And it's really sad to see how our world is acting to this, because me and my mom, we pay a lot in housing. But you gotta realize, as housing has gone up, everything else we can't afford. And I love to see these companies. I have a friend that kind of told me a little bit and said, oh, but they need, they should be justified because it's expensive to get stuff. And it may not be. I don't disagree it's expensive to get stuff to the store where he works at. The problem is, can people pay for your justification? You could justify anything, all you want. I love these people who justify, they need to do this. They feel sorry for me. How can I feel sorry when I can't afford to feel sorry? See, that's what makes me laugh, is what these companies or businesses, they forget so often that us, the people, we're the consumer. We're actually suffering more than the people who own businesses, okay? Because you own something I can never own. Maybe someday with this YouTube channel I own this, but I mean, I don't really own anything that's making me enough money to justify paying for certain things. So I'm a back, like housing. Housing's important. So for us, like, this is how we do things, and we actually survive very well. But for us, housing is number one. Okay? And then things that go along with the housing, and then of course food. You gotta eat. So we'll go into some of this other stuff more, like food and stuff too, but there's a system, and everything else is secondary. So we don't have any streaming services, and actually we do well because of it. We live within our means, and that means first things first. Housing is taken care of, everything else is secondary. And if that means we don't live with certain things, we just don't. And people can cry all they want, like businesses, companies can cry, oh, poor me, why are these people not wanting to buy our services? Well, I'm sorry. Well, number one, you're screwing people over. A lot of these companies do this. But number two, people can't afford it. If everything else goes up, like housing, fuel, things like that, people are going to start figuring out, I have to cut. I don't have a choice if they're smart. A lot of people are cutting back because you notice it now. I have a friend who's basically was trying to say people will pay for it just because they'll pay for it. Even and I disagreed with it because I think at first people will, and then eventually people will get desperate and they will drop it, and it's happening. People are dropping things like Disney Plus, Netflix, not also knowing that these places are doing things that they shouldn't be doing, but to consumers and stuff because it used to be serve the consumer. Now it's for who cares about the consumer, which you can't go that way. The problem with our world is we don't have a middle necessarily. Sometimes we do. It's amazing when we do, but a lot of times we go too far to either side, and it's disaster both ends. We go too far. We please every customer, and then we build the Karen, and then we go too far where we go screw all customers, which that's what they're into right now, and then you wonder why you lost all your business. And a lot of these places are losing most of their business, or I love it's crazy. Okay, it's our world is becoming a crazy mess, and I think there's gonna have to be some rebalancing. But anyway, housing is important to all people, and homelessness, making homelessness illegal, isn't helping. What are you gonna do with all the people? You can make it illegal all you want, and I don't know what these companies think. These companies that work in the government think, "Ooh, let's make it illegal. We'll make it illegal, and everybody has to have housing." Where's the money? You want money. The people you're making illegal can't afford to buy your crap to begin with, or can't afford to live in your homes. So that's not gonna help you, and it's not because people are still homeless. People are just moving around, and they're just like, "Oh, it's illegal. Let's." Guys, get real. It's not going to help. This is why people don't like police. This is why I could talk about why. There are really many reasons to all these crises that are going on. And I think a lot of them could be easily solved if humanity kind of stands in arms together and says, we're done. You either fix it or we'll fix it. And if we fix it, you won't like it because we're going to give housing to everybody. And you're not going to have a say in what happens. I almost think that's what it should come to because I'm getting kind of tired of this because even if you're fair and you want to be nice and you're nice to people, you still get tired of those people who are jerks and who play the victim. I really get tired of those people who justify their greed and their need to be greedy. I get tired of it. I see it on YouTube because was looking into housing. I was interested in more like these smaller, not tiny homes. They're just small family, just small homes. Like if you're an individual has someone in your life, you get like a small 2-bedroom home that's significant for your family. Okay, I mean. And I got all these other things of how to invest in homes and stuff, and a lot of the ones I watched, I'm sorry to say it, and I feel like this is how the industry's headed, has all been about investment and greed. Oh, invest in this, you'll get this much return. The problem is, there's only so much investment some these people can do before they lose their investment because they either have to raise the prices because they're promising this high. Because the problem with and this comes down to the problem with capitalism. The problem with capitalism is I realized this a long time ago, or I realized this more like towards high school, where infinite growth does not exist. Number one, look how much money is actually in circulation today. Just look it up on YouTube, or not on YouTube too, but look it up on Google and look into it. I looked into it. There's no such thing as infinite growth. You grow to a point, and that's what I think hive companies are. It's like in YouTube, when you first start out, like I don't have that many subscribers, so I have room to grow. But there comes a point, and there's one YouTuber who kind of was ruining. This is just an example, ruining his career a bit because he got caught up in his growth that he eventually capped out. I mean, he capped out to where the growth he was going to get, and instead of playing to his followers who loved him, who liked him, he tried to get more by doing more crazy things, get more views and stuff, and he didn't exactly get. Actually, the opposite effect kind of happened. He almost was towards 5 million. Now he's 4 million and maybe losing more. I mean, and that's the problem. So they get to this idea, and growth at first is great. it can be great, but you got to be satisfied. And I think that's the problem. Infinite growth does not happen with companies. It's like you can only sell so much soda to someone unless you want to try to go to Mars and create more people just so you can sell more. I mean, I'm sorry, this planet only has so many people on it. We do get more people daily, unless there comes a point, even if you had every market, even if you were in every country, even let's say I started out and I said, like, if you have one store, okay, let's say you start with one store, then you grow to 100 stores, okay, every time you grow a store, cool, that's growth. But there comes a point that if you've covered every town that you can cover in the U.S. or even in the world, there comes a point where infinite growth does not exist. You've grown to a certain point where you're just gonna stay the same, and you're not always going to get everybody to buy your stuff. That's the other issue, and that's the problem I think in today's world. And that's the problem with housing. The problem with housing is they keep upping these prices, but the other issue is no one's pay is going up except maybe a few people who are lucky to get bonuses, or not just a bonus but actually a raise. And that's the other problem. That's the other issue. I think there needs to be a wake up call in this world where we cap housing, and especially get rid of the bad people. I know our state is getting kind of, I feel like they're getting frustrated, but I'm waiting to see them actually do stuff about it. I wish they would, where they seem like they want to, where they recognize that there are people who are homeless who shouldn't be homeless, and they've even put out. We read this huge letter, and it's disgusting. They found things like they were evicting people with that was illegal for them to do. Well, if it's illegal and they've done it, catch them and jail them. See, that's this funny thing is these corporations are losing their mind, and these are supposed to be good people, but look what the evil they've done to the world. Look what the evil they've done, and that's what I'm saying. The housing, there's two housing companies they found in the state who've been buying all the apartments, have also meddled with the market to force people to sell their, they've bullied people. I mean, yeah. So anyway, we had this article that was sent to us, and we read it, and it was by the state. And they were lining out a bunch of things that they may finally step in and deal with it because it's done. They're done, and it shouldn't happen that way. People should have housing. It should be really hard, and it is hard in our state. We're not the hardest state. There's another state that's harder than us, very hard, which I'm glad they are because they actually seem to do well with it. But they should be really hard on owners. Harder evictions, and it boils down to the bad ones. There are good ones, yes, but I think if you don't pay your rent, yeah, maybe. But the other thing is, I really feel like people aren't understanding this. There's coming a point because they're shutting down all these companies. Like we had a huge company that produced paper in our area. They shut them down. Lock, stock, and barrel. Shut them down. They're keeping, I guess, some of the machinery sort of idling, so they hope to run, but they've shut them down. You know how many jobs were lost and how many people moved from the area because of that? Okay? The other biggest industry in this area is medical. And the bigger industry, if you count all the stuff, is retail. But that retail, we've have another company that's filing bankruptcy. There are spaces open. They haven't even finished the supposed rebuild of this mall. It's not a mall anymore, strip mall. It's kind of dumb, but they should have kept it as a mall. But that they only have a few buildings, and they don't build it as they're building it. This is their plan, which is kind of a stupid plan, in my opinion. They're building it as they have people. Well, good luck, because you're going to be waiting for the next 15, 20 years. And I think the state will probably step in and say, hey, they almost did, I think, at one time. Say, hey, finish this. And that's how you're going to get. I mean, we had a Bed Bath and Beyond that failed, that went bankrupt. I mean, I could talk about all these other places, and the restaurants. I'm sorry to say it, they're not doing very well around where we live. I don't know how they're doing around where you live, and I've noticed changes there that are coming, which they've announced several times on the news. It's just we need to wake up. We need to understand how are people going to live, and what happens when people who did work, who had good jobs, like this paper mill was a really good job. I knew at least a couple. Her husband worked there. not fault of his own. He worked there his whole life, close to retirement. I don't know. He may get an early retirement from it. I don't know. I don't know. They're not here anymore. They don't live where we live, because the paper. I think there's a lot of factors, but the paper mill completely shut down, and he was out of a job. And what do you do with those people? Those people who used to do well, make cars, drive trucks. There's trucking companies that have closed down. At least I know of one major one that had closed down. What are you gonna do? Where are people gonna get money to live? I'm gonna try to continue some of these topics here, but that's all part of housing. How are people going to pay for housing when companies are shutting down, or companies don't want to pay people anymore because they think they just have the right to pure profit? It doesn't work. Look it up. There's only so much money that's actually printed. Did you know that? There's only so much money floating around the government allows. Not one person can have it all. And when they have it all, the people move on. There's no point. They'll have all the money, but what are they going to do with it? No one's going to accept it because one person controls it all. See, the only way a financial system works is when the money flows. When the money stops because certain groups get greedy and try to take it all, it doesn't work. It backfires, and everything else falls apart with it. And then they all wonder what went wrong. Well, do you ever look at reality? Do you ever see reality of how much things actually cost to the persons who have to actually live and buy this stuff? We don't make bank. I don't. I'm on disability. Government's not going to pay you hardly anything. That's the other thing with the housing I want to tell you about. Government hardly pays me anything. They pay me maybe $940 a month, if that. And you don't want to get into housing because housing is not a good thing, because it's more government control. It's more of how we can, be mean to you and not care about your needs. I think they also affect the vets, because I know there are vets who aren't happy, who are injured because of war stuff. It's the same thing. It's just so sad how our society is, and how even the Bible, we talk about the Bible. I love those, talk about the Bible. Well, God said treat the disabled and poor and all that. Treat them like they're your brother, and, invite them into your home or whatever. I mean, help them get homes, I guess, Come on, we can do better, and let's stop. I mean, it's great to talk, but let's do more than talk. Let's actually solve this problem. Anyway, if you like this topic, I hope to do more. It has inspired me to do. I want to do more. I've been Harrison Ultimate Gaming, or Harrison, not Ultimate Gaming. That's my other channel. But I've been Harrison. This is the Harrison Show on iHome Entertainment. But you can check out my other channels like Harrison Ultimate Gaming, by clicking on my name or icon. I have a few other channels there. I have a Lego one, because I was trying to divide Lego. I used to do Lego. If you look on this channel, I have some Lego animated films and stuff, and I want to move it over towards its own channel, like the gaming I did, and even some of the spiritual stuff I moved over to its own channel. It's going to be on its own channel, Harrison Christian Media. But just look at other. Comment, subscribe, comment. I want to know your feedback on this. Is this any concern to anyone, that realizing that things are changing, and people need to be housed, and companies, people say work for McDonald's, that soon may be going bye-bye. Okay? There are not enough jobs, and it's not just that it's going bye-bye. Watch the news. All these places are going automated. Our Walmart, we've seen our local Walmart changed in ways where they could hire someone to do certain jobs. They're not doing them anymore. Guess who's doing it? We have one robot that no one likes, by the way, because they already feel because people need to live, people need to make money. That's taking over these people's job. It's a cleaning robot. They're hiring less cleaners. They're doing self-checkouts more and more. Except for a few things they can't do it because the state won't allow, because of alcohol rules and things like that. They're pushing for less people to have jobs. What are you going to do with housing these people? That's what I ask. Put your comment down below. I hope we can combine together and work towards a better future. Anyway, I need to go. This video is long enough, but please comment, subscribe, and hit bell notification. And I hope to see you next time for another topic like this one. But bye for now.